Hello and welcome back to week 2 of the NFL DFS Slate Breakdown for Sunday's main slate. We're going to be going through the whole slate like we did yesterday, breaking it down by position, and, a little bit of strategy talk mixed in here. Now, before we get into it, come join us at LineStar. It's $39.99 per month, and it gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all one low price. So let's do it. Let's get in and get it done. Let's get to the slate. So once again, we do have 13 games on DK, and we have, I believe, 14 on FanDuel, because once again that night game is in the FanDuel slate. So we'll try and cover all of that, do our best to get over it, and we will start off on DraftKings going position by position with high-owned quarterbacks, going with Kyler Murray at 15% owned. It is versus the Rams. There are two main games that I am looking to target this week. It is the Buccaneers and Lions and the Rams versus the Cardinals. Both those games, one is a 51 total, the other one's 48. There are a couple other high total games, being Cincinnati and the Chiefs, and then 49ers versus Vikings and Saints Dallas. But these two, Tampa Bay and Detroit, and then the Rams, Cardinals, are the two that I think have the best chance of really going nuts or having pieces where you kind of had one. The reason being is not only are they high scorers, but the players in these games get a lot of volume. The target trees are thinner. There's not as many places to go with the ball. And that just means higher score potential. So Kyler Murray is in one of those games, which is obviously very interesting to me. And I'm fine with going here. I mean, the Rams let Detroit go nuts through, they did well on the ground. They did decently through the air. I think Kyler can definitely get it going. And the plus thing with Kyler is that their defense is awful, so the Rams are probably going to score as well. The one thing about this game is that neither team really has home run hitters. I don't think either team has players that are going to, break that 80-yard touchdown to really make a team go nuts. But I think both offenses are good enough compared to the defenses they'll be going against that they can both put up a ton of points, which means you got to consider Kyler in this situation. Next, we got Baker Mayfield, 5,900 versus the Lions. Stafford and the Rams did decently versus them, kept up with them. Baker has been actually really, really good. All last year he did decent. From really week 15 on, he had 3 games right around 30 points. He starts with week 1, another 30-point game. And now he's getting a Detroit team that is a little bit of a pass funnel D. And I think you do have to consider Baker a little bit with his price at 5,900. It's just probably a little too cheap. Now, what are the chances he goes for 30-ish again? Probably not super high. However, he had 28 versus them in the playoffs last year. So can he do it versus Detroit? Absolutely. And I got to consider him. And I like the pass catchers involved with them as well, even the tight end. And the fact that it's going to be very hard for the running backs to get much going on the ground. So I think it really is going to come down to Baker's arm to see if they have a chance. So I think Baker definitely has some interest. Next, we got Jaden Daniels. I'm not too into Jaden this week. I loved him last week. Loved the rushing upside. I think the rushing upside isn't going to be as high in this game. I don't think the Giants are going to be able to get the pressure that Tampa Bay does. The scheme is way different. And I think it's going to be hard for Jaden to rush the ball 16 times like he did last week. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He did literally nothing with his arm. I think they're going to try and scheme it a little bit more for him to throw the ball. And with that, I don't like him as much. Can you play him? Absolutely. I mean, the Giants are a decent matchup. Both the Commanders and the Giants should be in this game, and it should be a close game. But do I see a ton of points in this game? I don't know. I just don't really trust either offense to get it done, even versus a defense that's not that good. And that's my issue here, is I just don't really see this game going crazy. Can you go here? Will I have a little? Probably a little bit, but I'm not going wild with how much Jaden Daniels I have. Next, we got Jared Goff. It's one of the games I like, so I'm fine going here. The other thing is that the Lions love to rush the ball, but they're going to have a hard time here. Buccaneers, stout run D when Vita Vea is healthy. He is healthy, and I think they're going to have a hard time rushing the ball, at least, through the middle. And with that, I think more is going to rely on Jared Goff. He's at home. It's in a dome. Tampa Bay is a pass funnel D. I think there's big time upside with Jared Goff today. The one issue with him is that he just doesn't have that high of a ceiling. We had one 30-point game from him. Couple 25 pluses. That's my one worry. You're paying, $500 more than Baker on him. And maybe you have a higher, floor or median with Baker. But, with Goff, but I just don't know if you have the ceiling that Baker does, or a consistent ceiling as Baker, which is just really weird to say because I'm talking about Baker Mayfield. But regardless, I think Goff is in a good spot, and I think he can get it done. I think Jameis Williams is super interesting. Laporta, Amon-Ra, all of them are very interesting, and I'm going to definitely have a decent amount of exposure to that team. Daniel Jones, 9%. He's green, so we'll still talk about it. I think a lot of people are going to go here, or at least consider, because of the 5,300 price tag. And honestly, I'm okay going here. I think the Commanders are a terrible defense, and I think I would rather go to Daniel Jones than Jaden Daniels, just for the reason of he's cheaper, he still gives rushing upside, and Malik Neighbors, I think, is a beast, and they're going to try and get him the ball a lot, and that gives Daniel Jones a little more upside. Do I love Daniel Jones? Absolutely not, but I would consider playing him a little bit. All right, now get into some other guys I like. I got to bring up Brock Purdy. So CMC is out, and there is a chance that he's out for multiple weeks now. Step in with Minnesota, and they weren't great as a pass D last week, and now they have San Francisco Giants, who are likely going to throw the ball a decent amount. I love Debo, I love Ayuk, I love Kittle in this matchup, and if I like all those pieces, I got to consider Brock Purdy. He has that 30-point upside also if the game really gets going nuts. The one thing is I do worry that Minnesota can score with the 49ers. The other worry is they played week 7 of last year, and it was a low-scoring game, 39 total. I see there is a path to something like that, and if that happens, I still believe that there's going to be a San Francisco piece likely in the optimal lineup, but I just don't think Purdy will be one of those pieces if they don't score 30 plus. Next, I got to bring up Justin Fields. He's 5,400. He is pretty much the only rushing quarterback last week that didn't go nuts, but he carried the ball 14 times. He has Arthur Smith, who is going to get things drawn up for him and put his team into good spots. The one worry I have here is that I think George Pickens is going to be shadowed by Patrick Surtain. So I don't love Pickens outlook for this game. However, I think that Fields can do it rushing. Fields has Pat Freiermuth in the middle, and there are other stacking partners you can use with him that are very cheap, so that he is going to be a very cheap option. Now, there's the issue of him being 36.5. Rushing quarterbacks means it doesn't matter quite as much, but it's an issue that this game could be low scoring and not, get very little going on. Plus, the Steelers defense looks really good, and as long as TJ Watt is healthy, I expect it to be pretty good. So I think Justin Fields is an interesting pivot that is going low owned. Do I absolutely love it? No, but I am intrigued to go there. Next, we got Dak Prescott. Cowboys were dominant at home last year. Dak averaging 56.6% more fantasy points per game in domes on DraftKings. And now he gets the Saints. The Saints have been another one of those pass funnel defenses. His running backs, Zeke Elliott and Rico Dowdle, you don't think they're going to really, or I don't think they're really going to be able to run the ball much. I am a little interested in those running backs just because of how many points the Cowboys could put up. But I think Dak is a very interesting spot. His bigger games all happen at home. He's at home versus the Saints, who are coming in after winning by 37, and I don't think anybody believes that they are really that good of a team. I think it was just Carolina being that bad. But the Saints also have some pieces that can make the game really blow up. Rashid Shaheed is there, who can have, an 80-yard touchdown. Then you have CeeDee Lamb on the Cowboys side that can really get things going also. So I think there is a path where this game gets a little bit exciting. Another thing is just the Cowboys were dominant at home last year. If they're putting up 30-plus points in this game, Dak is going to end up getting his. They're going to have to score some way. It doesn't mean that it's going to be through the running backs. I think it's going to be hard for the running backs to score. So, those are the quarterbacks for DK. Let's check out FanDuel. Just make sure there's others that we should go over. Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson is going to get a lot of love. I'm a little worried about this game. I don't think Richardson's going to have to use his legs like he has or did last game. Now, because he can use his legs, the upside's always there. But at 8,500, a low game total, and, getting ownership, I just don't really feel like I need to get there. Baker, we talked about. Lamar, I think they're just going to crush the Raiders. I don't really like going through Lamar for those points. And CJ Stroud, we should probably talk about this Bears-Texans game a little bit. 45.5 point total. I think there is some interest here. I think some exposure to this game is going to be needed on FanDuel. The Texans are going to put up points. We have questions. Are the Bears as good of a defense as they looked like they were last week? Or was it just because Tennessee and Will Levis is bad? I think that is something we're still trying to figure out. But I don't mind having exposure to one of the three wide receivers here. I don't necessarily want CJ Stroud or Caleb Williams. Caleb, I'm out on. I have major concerns about him right now. But Stroud, I could see why you want to use him. But at 8,200, I'm probably going somewhere else on this slate. All right, now let's look at running backs. So high-owned running backs, we got Breece Hall. Obvious, complete beast, going to get a ton of workload. I'm fine going there. He's one of the only few backs you're going to count on. Kyren Williams, he's going to be in a ton of my lineups. I love the spot versus the Cardinals. Again, this is a spot I'm targeting a lot, and I think Kyren's workload and his history dating back to last year is just insanely good that I don't mind ownership. I'm rolling there. Jordan Mason, 5,200. He's in a solid spot. too cheap for the workload he's got, and he looked great Monday night. I would not be surprised if his ownership is, 40 plus when it comes down to it. And he's in a good spot. I think you'll have to use him. Next, Jerome Ford. I think Jerome Ford is interesting. He played 75% of the snaps. Like I said, there's very few running backs that are really on the field that much. And at 5,900, you got to consider it. The Jags were solid on defense, but they did give it up a little bit through the air. I think Ford can have some success there. I don't love him in this spot, but I don't mind sprinkling some in. I think Alvin Kamara could have a big game, especially on DraftKings, where it's full point PPR. I think the most likely situation is Cowboys are up by a lot, and they are dumping off to Alvin Kamara a ton. He had 5 targets in a game they lost for 37. This is one of the scripts that the Cowboys or Kamara could have 10 plus targets in. One of the type of game scripts that would allow that. So I am interested in Kamara. They really don't have many running backs to fall back on. J.K. Dobbins, guy absolutely crushed it. He's in a great spot versus Carolina. Him or Edwards probably gets it done. The issue is both of them are only going to get, limited touches, 15 plus touches or under touches for both would be my estimation on them. And I think it's going to be hard to really have a score that breaks the slate with that. J.K. Dobbins did it last week, so maybe he can do it again, but he did get caught on big runs a couple times, so I just don't think that speed is fully there. He has some burst, but top end is lacking. Derrick Henry, I love Derrick Henry in this spot. I think he is going to mash the Raiders. He only had 13 carries, 2 targets, attempt for 15 total touches. I think he gets upward more closer to 20 in this game, and they just got gashed by 161 rushing yards to J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. And I think Derrick Henry can have himself a game. I think he's going under-owned, and I'm going to have a decent amount. Ramondre Stevenson had a giant workload, 28 touches. I don't think that's going to happen again. However, we're in a decent spot for good old Ramondre. I don't mind going here, but I do question how much workload he's going to get. I would expect it 20, 22 touches, which is more than enough to get it done. He's firmly in consideration. Najee, I do kind of like Najee. Jaylen Warren only had 4 touches. If that continues, Najee is going to be a smash this year. Isaiah Pacheco is my first pivot that I want to talk about versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Ramondre Stevenson just had a huge game versus them. I think KC probably crushes the Bengals right now. I think the Bengals are a little bit off, and they're going to come in a little fired up because they just got embarrassed. So maybe they're able to hang in a little bit, but Pacheco is going to get a lot of work, and he has several 25-plus point games, and I think this is a setup where he absolutely could get it. Ramondre crushed him, and Pacheco can definitely do that as well. Another pivot, James Conner. Like I said, it's a game I like. I think that you totally could go a couple Rams players, run it back with Conner, or go Conner and McBride with Kupp on the other side. Some sort of game stack like that would get you a little bit less ownership due to Kupp's high ownership. So it would bring down the total cumulative ownership down a little bit, make you a little different, and get you a ton of attention on one of my favorite games of the week. Jonathan Taylor. There is a decent chance that they are leaning on Taylor big time versus the Packers. Just watch. Jordan Love is actually questionable right now. If he plays, I don't like Jonathan Taylor as much because I think then Richardson likely has to do a little more with his arm and his legs. But as it sits right now with Malik likely being the Packers quarterback, I think the team could just rely on Jonathan Taylor? And if so, he has a giant ceiling. We know he's had it for years. He put up 31 on week 18. We've seen several 20s. He's another year removed from injury. I think he's in a good spot to have a good game. Don't mind going to some JT. Brian Robinson. Guy had 15 touches last week versus Tampa Bay, which is a good run defense. And now he's getting the Jets. I love the spot for him. The other thing is that he got 4 targets. So he's not even coming off the field totally and just passing down situations. And I think this is a game the Commanders will stay in the game towards the end. And it gives Richard Robinson a big-time upside. If he gets 15, 18, 20 touches, he could be a smash at 5,800. Very interested in that spot for him. Josh Jacobs, his workload's going to be insane. It is purely that, and Mixon ran all over Colts, so Jacobs could do it as well. Then I liked Rico Dowdle. I don't absolutely love the matchup. Saints are generally pretty hard to run against, but if the Cowboys are putting up 30, there's a chance of a running back getting in. Dowdle's only 4,800. And I think they're going to get him involved more than they did last week. Zeke only had 12 carries or 12 touches. He had 9. So it is almost a 55, 45, 60, 40 split. And I think it's going to come more 50-50 throughout the season. So a little interest, but not a ton. Zach Charbonnet, we got to bring him up just because Walker is doubtful. When Walker is announced out, ownership on Charbonnet is going to go way up. We have seen him do well as the starter before. He has shown he can do a lot of different things. It's not the easiest matchup in the world, but at 5,800, a guy that's going to get as much work as he will is interesting. So got to be said there. Getting over to wide receiver now. Oh, check ownership on running backs real quick before, just make sure there's anybody we did not talk about. Oh, Mixon versus the Bears. It's kind of a wait and see approach to see how good that Bears rushing D is. Pollard was able to get off a little bit, so I think there is some upside in Mixon. And it's definitely one of the ways to get some exposure to that game. And let's move it on over to wide receiver again. Let me close my blind a little bit as the sun is trying to come in here. All right, so back to wide receiver. High owned on DraftKings, Cooper Kupp. We're playing him. I don't care about ownership. He had 21 targets. He's going to get 12 to 15 this week against a poor D. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think this is absolute smash spot with Brown. I will say that I also love Jamison Williams. Tampa Bay brings pressure a lot. They do a lot of cover too, but with the pressure, sometimes they slide into cover one, which leads one safety out there, and they're going to take some shots with Williams. At only 5,300, it's very interesting to me. Rashee Rice, absolutely love the spot for Rice versus Cincinnati. The guy has just been a beast since they really let him go in this offense. He is the number one. I said it last week. I think it again, and we all drafted him too late. Allen Lazard, there's no way I am playing a high on Allen Lazard. He got it done last week. He got 9 targets in a game they were down and throwing a ton. I just don't expect that same game script, and I don't expect Allen Lazard to come down with 2 touchdowns again. He is only 3,300. He's going to get some targets. Fine if you want to go there, but I'm probably going elsewhere. Chris Godwin, I like that game. Definitely going to go there. Wan'Dale Robinson, he's 4,300, getting 13% ownership. He's in a decent game environment. My issue with him is there's just no ceiling. I mean, the guy got 20 once, and he had 55 yards, then got a carry for 24 yards. It's just his path to big time upside is he has to get 12, 15 targets. Does that happen again? He got 12 last time. I don't know. I think most likely he ends up with 5 receptions or 6 receptions for 60 yards, and it's just not going to get it done. So I am worried, and if he's high owned, I'm probably out. Debo. I'm probably going to want one of Debo, Ayuk, or Kittle on most of my teams. I think one of those 3 or Mason. Well, if you put Mason in there, one of those 4 is probably on almost all my teams. Definitely have some interest. Debo just gets more work. He had 8 carries last week without CMC there, and can definitely do that. Still get those 9 targets and get a lot done. Malik Neighbors is in a great spot. Definitely interest there. CeeDee Lamb is probably my favorite high-priced receiver. Don't love Justin Jefferson this week. I liked Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson here, more so because I think their ownership is going to be way higher than we're showing right now. I think a lot of people are going to go to that game for one of these guys and use them as the value because the game is exciting. But it's just not often these two are really going to pay it off. And most likely to me is they split enough work that neither really are needed. I don't mind playing either of them, and definitely not playing them together, but they're going to get run. My favorite pieces in this game by far are Kupp and Kyren. Then I'll mix match Robinson, Johnson, Parkinson. Greg Dortch is another way to get cheap exposure to that game we like. He got 8 targets. He's been good in the past when he's got his workload. Terry McLaurin, only 4 targets. I think he gets a lot more. They got to get him the ball. The other thing, Jane Daniels, rookie quarterback, may not go through his progressions that much in these first couple games, which means there may be some forced targets to Scary Terry here. One issue, though, is their O-line was just getting torched last week. And if that is the case, he might not have time to get McLaurin the ball in those routes. Mike Evans, I like his upside. Detroit, like Tampa, does bring some pressure and tries to stop the run, just leading to more passing. Marvin Harrison is one scary click this week, but it is a game we like. The Bills, who they faced last week, had the Dolphins this week, held Tyreek and Waddle to very little. So the Bills might have a very solid secondary, which makes me give Harrison a little bit of a pass. Still a wait and see approach here. I am concerned he is a little bit of a bust after some of the, information on his speed scores and whatnot has came out this week. But I think he gets a little more work. And after that quote that Kyler had where it's not his responsibility to get him the ball, I could see more work going his way. Rashid Shaheed, this is a way to get some ceiling to that game and have a cheap run back from the Cowboys. And if this game goes off, there's a high likelihood it's because Shaheed or Olave have a big-time game. Ayuk, love it. Just part of that whole 49ers four-headed monster that I like. And on to FanDuel wide receivers. Didn't talk about Brandon Cooks, but I much prefer CeeDee Lamb. However, with Jake Ferguson likely missing this game, Cooks may get some more work. It's definitely interesting. Jamar Chase, I don't love it, but it is Jamar Chase. He can go off against anybody. And I do prefer Collins or Dell to Stephon Diggs, but those three, one of them is going to have a game, almost every week this year. And moving it over to tight end, let's try and finish this out quick because it's already at 30 minutes. Highest owned, Colby Parkinson. Rams lost Puka. Ball's got to go somewhere. He's cheap. Makes sense that people are rolling there. Sam Laporta, this is a great spot for a bounce-back game for him. He went 11 targets, 9 receptions for 65 in the playoffs. 11 targets earlier that season last year. There's good chance he's getting a lot of targets underneath. Travis Kelce, I can't go there outside of the one game versus the Chargers last year. Well, 3 of the first 5 games, he really hasn't done much outside of the playoffs. I just don't think he is needed like he used to be on this offense. He's still good, but I want his price to come down a little bit more before I'm really playing him a ton. I don't mind having a little bit of him, but I'm not going to have much. Brock Bowers, I think, is very interesting. Guy got 8 targets last week. He's in a good spot this week to get it rolling versus the Ravens, who were versus KC last week. And I don't mind going to some 4,400 Brock. I think there is a very good chance he's mid 5Ks in a few weeks. He's good, and I think he should have probably been drafted all best ball season higher than he was. George Kittle, I like. Jawan Johnson, he had a touchdown versus Carolina. Now he's getting the Cowboys, who it's a decent matchup, but they actually might have to throw a lot. And the Cowboys really just need to dig in and stop Olave. Don't let Shaheed get deep. And then the Saints have issue passing the ball, and it's checkdowns everywhere else, which is right where Jawan Johnson. Mike Gesicki, I think, is a little interesting. He has some ceiling. He got 4 targets. T. Higgins is likely out again. Jamar Chase didn't look that good in, not practicing much all offseason, preseason, and then right into the game. He's 3,100, and he's getting some targets in a game they're likely going to have to throw a lot more. I mean, New England only put up 16. We know the Chiefs aren't only going to put up 16 points. We know it's going to be, in the 20s, and Cincinnati's going to have to throw the ball to be able to have a chance to get in the 20s. So, and lastly, Taysom Hill. The guy has just used so many different ways that at 3,900, I have major interest, and I think he will only be used more in a game where they're coming from behind. So Taysom Hill is a weekly consideration for me at this point. He can have just such huge ceilings, and with no real backup to Kamara. I know they have Jamal Williams there, but he's dust in my eyes. So Taysom becomes a little interesting. They'll have him in the backfield. They'll have him out wide. They'll have him play tight end. He's asked to do a lot in this team, and I'm a little bit intrigued there. Is it a home run? No, but it's an interesting play. Over to FanDuel, check tight ends, just see if we're not missing anybody there. High ownership, Trey McBride. He is probably my favorite piece on the Rams to run it back with. I do like Connor, but Trey McBride is right there as well. Evan Ingram, I don't totally love. I don't mind having him a little bit, but not going to have him a ton. And last but not least, let's check out defense. Ravens versus Raiders, smash. Chargers versus Carolina, smash spot. Saints versus Cowboys, they're cheap, and that's about it. Outside of that, I don't want anything to do with that spot. Colts versus Packers. If Malik is the starter, I think is a very, very interesting spot. Malik was sacked on 18% of his dropbacks, so high chance of sacks. He's not that great at throwing the ball, so chances of interceptions, very interested there. And going a little lower owned, Jags versus Cleveland Browns. There's a definite possibility that Watson is just cooked. The other thing is both of their tackles were on the injury report this week. And I think the Jags could end up getting after the quarterback a little bit. If Watson is cooked, there's upside with sacks, interceptions, all of that kind of stuff. So I think Jags are very interesting. Cowboys, if you want to pay up, obviously in a good spot. That Saints offense is not that good. And the Cowboys just smashed at home. And then we got to talk about the Steelers, another semi-pay-up option, but this Steelers D is legit. Bo Nix struggled in his first outing. I like picking on backup quarterbacks or rookie quarterbacks, and we got a rookie in Bo Nix. So let TJ Watt get after him and see what they can do there. So, and we'll just look at FanDuel defensive ownership real quick just to round it out. We got Chargers, Ravens, and Pats as the high owned. Pats against the Seahawks. I don't necessarily love it, but 3,400 is cheap enough where it is considerable. That will do it for us today, guys. Hope you guys have a good one. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Come join us at LineStar, $39.99 per month, and I'll talk to you later. Peace!